Hi, everybody. Welcome to Off the Clock, the official episode 1. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. We've already got a few comments. Thanks, Lady Lake. Hi, Max. So thank you guys for popping on. So Off the Clock is something that I've wanted to do for a while, and there's a couple of reasons why. But first off, it's 2022. It's the year to try new things. And I love the events industry. I've been in it for 6.5, 7, plus years at Biz Bash and Venue IQ and beyond. But definitely have been passionate about football, about sports, and decided to kind of take it to the next level and really do this. So Off the Clock, the name is a couple of reasons. Clocks are pretty big in sports, number one. Number two, I am literally off the clock. And number three, I thought it was a cool name. So here we go. We've got, thanks for the football emoji. Awesome. So why not start with the Super Bowl? We're about 72 hours from an epic clash with some of the most impressive offensive players in the game, as well as probably the best defensive player in the game. So we'll start there with kind of just some keys to the game. So the first thing is a number I want to just throw out there. 4,067. 4,067. That is the combined yardage, receiving yards of Cooper Kupp, right, and Jamar Chase. So combined, they've gotten 4,067 yards, which is pretty freaking impressive. And so there's a lot of talent in this game, but both teams really have some key things that they have to remember. They both came here. They beat legends to get here. In order to get here, you had to beat Tom Brady. You had to beat Patrick Mahomes. This was not easy to get here, and the storylines are just amazing, right? This is the Bengals' third year with Zach Taylor, second year with Joe Burrow, and it's really his first the first year he's actually gone the whole way. So it's pretty dang impressive. He goes to at LSU in 2019 after losing out the job to Haskins at Ohio State. He goes to LSU and he goes ahead and he wins a national championship in 2019. All right, then he goes first overall. Of course, the injury last year, and then this year he goes the full season. So his first full season, he may win a Super Bowl. Incredible stuff. Whereas with the Rams, you have Matt Stafford has a ton of weapons around him offensively, and of course, Aaron Donald and the team defensively. They've got all the pressure in this game. The Rams have all the pressure. The Bengals, I don't think anybody expected them to be here except them. I think the fact that pretty much most people had, including myself, and I admit I was wrong, had Patrick Mahomes versus Tom Brady rematch in the Super Bowl. And I was epically wrong with that. The Bengals and the Rams, great storylines all around. So the keys to the game for the Bengals: let Burrow be Burrow. Let him do his thing. Let him do his thing, right? He is incredible at the game. This, like I said, he may be the first player ever to win the Heisman, win the national championship, and win the Super Bowl. And he and Chase have this incredible thing going, right? But the difference maker is going to be the O-line, right? The O-line has historically for the Bengals been pretty terrible. And last year through this year, we didn't really know. We thought that they would shore up the line a little more than they did. They decided to take Chase first round, which turned out to be a pretty good decision, because I would argue they wouldn't be here if they didn't do that. So they turned out to be right there. So let Burrow be Burrow. Get as much protection as you possibly can. Avoid 9 sacks. If Burrow gets sacked 9 times this game, it's going to be trouble. Aaron Donald is real. And not just him, but there's a lot of talent. You've got Ramsey. You've got a lot of talent on that defense. And it's going to be a rough matchup. They say that the Super Bowl, it's won or lost on the line. They've got to do everything they possibly can to protect him. And hey, Rob, thanks for coming on. Appreciate you. So let's talk about the Rams and what they need to do. Aaron Donald, get some sacks, get some QB pressures, right? Just stop the Burrow Chase connection, because we all know that it's coming. Get OBJ going, right? We know any defensive coordinator worth their salt, and even some that aren't worth their salt, are going to know to double Cooper Kupp. They're going to go at Cooper Kupp hard to try to prevent that connection as much as they can throughout the game. However, the Rams have another wide receiver on the outside, Odell Beckham Jr., who has been having a pretty darn good run of it with the Rams. It seems like McVay finally figured out what Stefanski couldn't at the Browns, how to use OBJ in the right way, which is really to bring the quarterback, to give him another weapon to throw to, number one, because we know that Cooper Kupp is going to get hit, but also Cooper Kupp then has a little bit more freedom. Whereas with the Chase situation with the Bengals, he's the guy, right? Yes, they have other weapons. Yes, they have T. Higgins, they have Mixon, they do have other weapons. But let's face it, if Chase is taken down, that's it, right? So it just allows for a little bit more breathing room. And let's see. Football fan, yes. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. So my prediction for the game is, I actually think that the Bengals are going to pull out the upset of the century. Everybody expects the Rams to win. It's at SoFi Stadium. There are a couple of people predicting the Bengals, but most people are predicting the Rams. I'm predicting the Bengals in a bit more of a defensive game than people think, but 27-24, Bengals win the Super Bowl. I'd love to hear comments on that. I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of people saying all kinds of things about that. But I threw it out there. I'm going to stick by it. Those of you who've seen me do other things and call into shows and everything else, like, I stick by my predictions. Bengals are going to win. So moving on to the college game. So as you can see, Michigan shirt, right? I make no allusions to the fact that I went to the University of Michigan. That's actually what has intensified my love of football and sports in general. And so, of course, I follow Michigan football. You're going to hear a lot about Michigan football on the show. Sorry. But one thing that happened the other day was that after Harbaugh, we on episode 0 of this show, my test show, applauded Harbaugh coming back, that things were looking up for the program, that we are past this whole saga. And then more drama happens where Josh Gattis was wooed by Mario Cristobal at Miami. And I don't know exactly what went down. That is true. That is true. They do still have yes, Max. They do still have some pieces from that era. And if you remember, Hugh Jackson was the offensive coordinator, and they actually made a couple of playoff games with Hugh Jackson. And of course, he goes on to infamy at the Cleveland Browns. But yes, very valid, very valid. So in terms of Josh Gattis in Miami, he's rumored to have gotten a pretty big raise. We're talking $1.6 to $1.8 million base salary at Miami. Here's where I think this is a lateral move, and maybe even to his detriment, right? Miami under Mario Cristobal has a habit of hamstringing his offense. If you look at what happened in Oregon with Joe Moorhead, who I would argue is one of the best offensive coordinators in football, by far, he really could not do everything he wanted to do. There was a lot of running the ball. There was a lot of didn't look quite right. Cristobal, he likes to have his hands in the offense, right? Here's the thing: Josh Gattis is trying to move away from offense by committee and to actually have more control. As we know, in 2021, things shifted a bit in terms of uh, offensive philosophy in 2021. And so, is this a lateral move? I think it is. I think there are some aspects of Miami that are definitely more attractive. The weather being one, great weather, right? More of a recruiting hotbed. So there's definitely some rationale to go to Miami. But on the other hand, let's say he had stayed at Michigan through 2022. You have JJ McCarthy, who is likely, I don't know for sure, but likely, I think, going to take over at some point in 2022 as the starting quarterback of Michigan, right? You have Ronnie Bell coming back. Ronnie Bell is basically our entire deep threat. He's our entire yes, Miami is hot. It is hot. That's true. Appreciate that. And that's definitely a factor, right? But in terms of general weather, Michigan is the opposite, right? I lived in Ann Arbor for 4 years. The winters are freezing cold. You don't know cold until you go to live in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I've said this a lot, and so to get recruits to go there, it's the Michigan brand that really sells it. But my overall point of why he should have stayed at Michigan is that at Michigan, let's say he has a great season. He's got all the pieces in place. He's got the quarterback. He's got the wide receiver. He's got everything rolling. And then what happens, right? Then he gets knocked on the door at some big Power 5 jobs instead of just Virginia. He did interview at Virginia, but think of the possibilities with Miami. First of all, Cristobal is going to be micromanaging the offense. Number two, I don't think the pieces are quite in place like they are elsewhere. So there's a lot of that, I think, going on. But what does this mean for Michigan? What does this mean for next year? Business as usual? I think so. We just heard that Sherrone Moore and Matt Weiss are going to be the co-offensive coordinators. They're going to be play calling. I have a theory that that's what happened this year to an extent. Now, do I think Gattis was involved? Yes. He was the wide receivers coach. Nobody can take that away from him. His success at doing that, I think out of all the talent in the 2021 season, the wide receivers probably underperformed the most. So he was that, but I do think that Moore and Weiss had a large place in that offense. So Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC is going to make a fun showdown. I agree. It's going to be something. There's a lot in that, right? Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley leaving, there was some speculation that Lincoln Riley wanted to stay in the Big 12 because he had a much easier path to the playoff. Now you're going to have to play the likes of Alabama, Georgia, right? You're going to have to play A&M is raking in these 5 stars all over the place, right? So it's going to be a tough slog for Oklahoma. Texas, again, Texas has had more struggles, so I don't see that shifting too much. Sark is known as 7-win Sark for a reason. However, I do think that they'll improve, and it will make for a good showdown. I agree. So business as usual. If you've noticed the 2021 offense, there's a lot of pounding the rock. Were there passes? Were there even cool passes? Yes, there were. The Iowa championship game was against Iowa was incredible. There were some really interesting play calls, including the Donovan Edwards pass, which went for, I believe, 75 yards. It was really cool to watch. There were some explosive plays like that. But it was primarily pounding the rock with Hassan Haskins, with Blake Corum, with Donovan Edwards, reverses, flea flickers, statues of liberty, all of those wonderful things, and really shoring up that run game. The offensive line was incredible. Some of those pieces are coming back. They did win the kind of a key award. I believe that it's called the Joe Moore Award for the offensive line. So very impressive. I do think it's going to be business as usual, especially with Ronnie Bell coming back. I think the offense is actually going to improve next year, which is hard to fathom given how far we got in 2021, how far Michigan got. But if you look at what's coming back, you look at who's coming back, you look at all the talent there, I think that it's going to be just fine. So real quick on the NBA front, we have some big news with respect to James Harden getting traded away from the Brooklyn Nets. And I actually had the pleasure of going to see the Brooklyn Nets about 6 or 7 years ago. We had a VIP box at the stadium, and it was a very cool experience. And I kind of have been in awe of the last few years, how they've become more of a super team, right? You've got Durant, Harden. So absolutely, this is going to affect the team, right? Just it will. We've seen super teams, right? We've seen the Patriots in football. We've seen Alabama in college football. We've seen the Los Angeles Lakers win a whole bunch of trophies, right? The Chicago Bulls in the 1990s with MJ. Super teams, they win. Not always. We have had seasons where one player, like the Cavs in 2016, we've seen how one player can prop up a franchise. It's absolutely possible. But when you have a team like, let's say, the Lakers with Kobe, definitely really impressive stuff there. More to come on that. So kind of my big topic here is my last topic is on the Olympics. So we've got a lot. There's a lot to unpack with the Olympics this year. First of all, of course, the politics of it being in China, the uncertainty of how to cover it in the U.S. media. I've been watching some of the NBC coverage, especially things like the opening ceremony. There's been some confusion on like, okay, how much do we play up the different aspects? And I think that the default of saying "Go Team USA," that's what they've been doing for 20 plus years, and that's absolutely, I think, the right move. So keep going on that direction. We are up to 4 gold medals now. There was a lot of talk for the first, I think, 5 or 6 days of the Olympics. Hey, why is the U.S. at 0? Folks, getting gold medals is really freaking hard. And people don't realize that. There are people who just kind of check out the Olympics once a year. They don't see everything that goes into it, the qualifiers, even getting to China for this. There is a lot that goes in to get to that point. Sometimes the difference between a gold and 4th place is like a fraction, right? I'm not even talking about a gold and silver. I'm talking about a gold and staying off the podium completely. Some of these, like especially when you talk about swimming, and you talk about all of these, snowboarding is another one. It can come down to a razor's edge. What do we have here? Yes. So Nathan Chen, who I believe is incredible talent, maybe one of the best figure skaters that we've had in a while. Somebody told me that he really does kind of blend the athleticism and the artistry, right, of figure skating, right? So this is exactly what I was going to get to, Max. Yes, I don't know what's going to happen here. Obviously, Russia has already been sanctioned. My point was going to be Nathan Chen has done an incredible accomplishment, obviously helping us get to those 4 golds. Really impressive performances. I think his earlier one was even more impressive, but they were really cool. But will that be overshadowed by what's happening with Russia and the doping scandal? Yes, exactly. So I think he's really up there. And what's interesting is you've really got to know how to game the system and bring the artistry. right? Because I believe it was mid 2000s when they changed the point system over, and there was a lot of emphasis moving forward on, okay, how do we put together a program to get the most points? And some of the kind of artistry of the 80s, 90s, early 2000s kind of got lost, I think, a little bit. So now we see a little bit more of a revival of that. I think it's really interesting. But to go back to this comment, 100%, right? Who what do I think is going to happen? I think that there will be some type of slap on the wrist, maybe a sanction. They've already been banned from playing, but they technically can still play under a different name. They're not technically Russia, but they're basically Russia, right? So like just having to rename it, I don't see that as being enough of a deterrent. And so if this is confirmed and made official, then I think you've really got to look at actually legitimately banning people, countries, not just letting them compete, but in a different format or whatever, but legitimately saying, look, like this is unacceptable, and that there's actually like a lot going on with world politics that you got to look at, right? China has also historically there have been different scandals and different things with people competing, and so it just kind of goes back. At the end of the day, though, we've got to preserve the Olympics, guys. We've got to preserve the Olympics, right? The Olympics are such a recognition of the absolute best in their sport, right? And that's what we need to remember, right? Regardless of where the Olympics are, regardless of anything else, it's something where we all can come together every 2 years. In this case, there was one last year due to COVID, but it's something that we have brings us together. We root for our country, and it really, like, the passion that I've seen people have for their country is incredible, and it actually, people really rally on that. So we'll see what happens with this the scandal. I am hoping, though, that it doesn't overshadow the fact that Chen, as well as people like Lindsay Jacobellis, got a gold medal after almost getting a gold medal way back, made the silver, actually got the gold medal this time, got us up to 4 gold medals. I believe we're up to 10. I'm going to check the medal count. Commit a cardinal sin and search for this right now. Yeah, we're up to 10. So it hasn't changed since before. 4 golds, 5 silvers, and 8 bronze, leading to 10. There are a couple of countries with more. Austria, Norway, and Germany has the most gold. So we've got some interesting countries in the mix at the top. It's usually U.S., China, maybe Russia sneaks in there, but it's good to see kind of a mix of different countries. But we'll see what happens as we get through the process. So just in case anybody missed the Super Bowl, I'm going to actually talk a little bit more about that before we wrap up. So obviously this is a big game, right? We are getting closer and closer. We're less than 72 hours. My family, we're all getting together and we're having a little celebration. We've got a ton of guacamole and a ton of salsa ready to go. Yeah, got a comment. Yeah, exactly. Disqualifications absolutely have to be reviewed. I 100% agree. So knock on wood there that we get some things happening and some real sanctions. But at the same time, I'm hoping it doesn't overshadow everything else. So again, Super Bowl, Rams Bengals, big game. 2 teams, one nobody expected to be in, one I think some expected to be in, the Rams. Bottom line, folks, the Rams have all the pressure in this game. The Rams are the ones who have really sold out to win now, right? Getting Stafford in the trade, getting some, like, basically saying, look, that's the guy I want. I want Stafford. We're going to trade Jared Goff to the Detroit Lions, and give them some picks and things like that. We're going to get Matt Stafford in here. We have a $5 billion SoFi Stadium, right? Lots of pieces. The best defensive player in all of football, probably the best since Lawrence Taylor. Um, it's a super team, right? You've got Cooper Kupp. You now have Odell Beckham Jr., right? You've got some really incredible talent all over. And then you have the Bengals, and it's Joe Burrow and it's Chase, right? And yet I still predict that the Bengals are going to win the game. I believe I said 27-24. I'll go back and listen. But I think Bengals by 3 is a pretty solid prediction. It means in order to win even by 1 point against the Rams at their home turf, it's going to take a lot of creative play calling. So some of the things that I'm thinking we're going to see the Bengals try is I think we're going to see some trickery, because in order to, like, they're going to try to get Chase the ball in as many different ways as possible. You might even see direct snaps to Jamar Chase. You might see screens that are going different ways. You're going to see obviously some creative, I think slant/vertical concepts to try to confuse as best as they can this elite, almost god tier defense that the Rams have. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. I'm guessing you mean the Bengals. Yeah, it is incredible, right? Nobody expected them to get to this point. Zach Taylor had a pretty rough record before now. They were taking over from Lewis, who, yes, did some good things, but I think we can all agree fell off a bit towards the end. And yeah, like it's kind of shocking. The OL is still rough. And I think that is the line play is exactly what factored into the odds, right? Is like, okay, yeah, Burrow's awesome. He won the Heisman, he won the national championship, but the line, it needs a lot of work, and it still does. Imagine what's going to happen next year. Now, obviously, they're all in now. They want to win the Super Bowl, but think about it. In 2019 at LSU, they had a halfway, I won't say it was an all-time OL, but was it comparatively better in college than most teams? I think so. I think it was top 10, top 15. Whereas in the NFL, the Bengals probably have number 31 or 32 ranked OL, right? So once that gets shored up, which I do believe it will, I think they are going to spend draft picks on linemen this year, more so. Maybe even pick somebody up in free agency. We don't know. But just thinking about how far they've come, it is absolutely astronomical and really, really cool to see what's happened. So Bengals need to find creative ways to get the ball to Jamar Chase, to get the ball to T. Higgins. And even Joe Burrow is going to have to use his legs. He has used his legs in the past to run when necessary, when the pass pro breaks down, all of that stuff. So that's going to be pretty huge, right? What happens with Joe Burrow? How much run? What kind of RPOs are called? What kind of Zach Taylor's play calling is going to be one of the make or break points of this whole thing, right? Because remember, the Rams have every other advantage. They have the advantage on wide receivers with Cooper Kupp and OBJ. They have the advantage in pretty much almost every. I think I saw that like safety is one area that the Bengals are a little better. I would argue that Joe Burrow is slightly better than Matt Stafford. I think it's close, and so I have no issue if they're ranked the other way, because I think they're both really, really good. I think Matt Stafford, if he was on a more competent team, would have probably gotten a couple of Super Bowls by now, at least one. So as we can see, he got to a Super Bowl his first year with a high level team. top 10 team, right? Like first time. So imagine what could have happened if that had happened earlier. So both are really incredible talents, but the Rams have a lot of advantages in this game. The Bengals are going to have to be more creative than we've ever seen. They did beat the Chiefs twice. That's a really great accomplishment. They beat some other teams that people weren't expecting them to beat to get to this point. The Rams obviously had to beat Tom Brady in his final year, allegedly final year. I have some thoughts on that we'll get to another time. But in any event, it's going to be a great game. Definitely have to give my thoughts on the game. If you follow me on the socials, do so, because I'll be tweeting it out and everything else. But whatever you're doing Sunday night, enjoy. And that's that for Off the Clock. Like I said, this is about a half of an hour show that we're going to be doing, and that's it. Just because people have lives, and I get it. Sometimes if there's a lot of commentary, we'll keep it going, but we'll try to keep a lot of the meat of the show to the first half hour, right? And to just get the key nuggets out. And then if people have comments and they want to stay and they want to talk, then that's awesome. But really just kind of keep it tight like that is kind of what I'm hoping for. So listen, everybody, appreciate you watching episode 1. This was really cool to do and to kind of make a dream come to life. It's going to take some time to grow, but I think we're at an awesome place. And yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lady Lake. And that's my mom. And thanks, everybody. Thanks, Max. Thank you for being part of show number 1, official show number 1. And I hope there will be a lot more to come. So stay tuned for that. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and have an awesome night.